All right, so this is an experiment trying a different way of filming videos using my phone. So what I'm trying to do here is to tie a small streamer using, in this case, I'll be using mallard flank that's been dyed to look like wood duck on a scud type hook. Think of it as a Mallard Flank Fry, which is a bit of a tongue twister, and we'll see how this video works. So I have here a scud hook. This happens to be a fairly sizable scud hook, a number 16, a number 6, um, using a 36 denier black thread. I'm gonna start a little, almost third to halfway back from the eye. That's going to serve as a marker for where my wing is going to start. And I'm going to lay down a little base of thread, then cut off the excess. Um, and it's a very simple fly in that all it's going to use is flash and one feather. So I'm going to get not much flash here. I'm going for 2 strands, which will be more than I need. So I pull out 2 strands of flash, clip them off. I'm going to find roughly the midpoint, lay that on top of the hook shank, use a few turns to bind it down, trying to keep it on top of the shank, fold the other half over, which will, of course, lock everything in place. Now I have a total of 4 strands. That's going to be too long, but I can cut that back after I finish the fly. The rest of the fly is going to be tied from a single mallard flank feather. This one has been dyed. They call it wood duck. It's sort of wood ducky. Um, I'll start by stripping off all the fuzz because that does not contribute to the fly. The other reason I'm doing this is the base. Once you get fairly far down the shank, the shaft of the feather, the shaft becomes thick enough that you couldn't wind it even if you wanted to. It would just break. So I strip that all off. That will give me a nice handle. Then I isolate the tip of the feather and pull back the barbs on either side. Lay the concave side on the top of the hook shank. And I'm going to then bind that to the hook shank. Pull that through so it's to the base. I'm going to go come forward, binding that down. That will keep it from going anywhere. Clip off the excess. Now all that's left to do is to wind the feather. Now, trick here is I want to fold the barbs towards the rear of the hook as I wrap. And the first one is generally the trickiest one. And I want to, every time I come around, I want to pull fibers towards the rear so that they don't catch, so they don't get caught underneath. I want all those barbs pointing towards the rear, but I'm also winding in relatively open turns towards the front of the fly. Because my goal, of course, is to finish the winding of the hackle, if you will, as close to the eye as I can without crowding the eye. And at first, this is going to look a bit raggedy, and that's okay. Now, I'm intentionally getting tighter that each turn is closer as I get closer to the hook eye, because that will help build up that teardrop shape. So I'm almost to the eye. I'm running out of feather, which is great. I can now tightly bind that down. I'm going to any fibers, any barbs I want to bring towards the rear. I can start building a little bit of a head here. Clip off the base of that feather. Build a nice little head. I will need my whip finisher. 3, 4, 5, moving towards the eye. Clip it off. And I left more of a tag in than I would like. So excuse me while I go back and see if I can't clip that off. Be easier on the same side. It still looks very shaggy. We'll fix that in a moment. Woo. Touch of head cement. Just enough to secure the threads. I don't want it getting back into the feather body. Then it's all about getting these fibers of the mallard feather and rolling them in my fingers, especially up near the base, and they will gradually start to take on a much more streamlined shape. And I have to worry, are any of these on the wrong side of the shank for where they're wound? Because I want everything flowing backward. And if I wet this slightly as I spin these, they will start taking on a more and more fish-like shape. And you need a little manipulation here. And the more you do that, the more they take on the orientation you would like. It takes a bit of doing. And then I'm going to clip off the flash just a tiny bit longer than the barbs of the feather. And next thing you know, you have a nice little streamer. Now, if you want it fuller, you can use 2 feathers of the wood duck, in which case you would not have as open a turns. That would give you a denser, fuller body. And that works better for bigger hooks, obviously. But sometimes you really are trying to imitate the very smallest of fry. And that's kind of the goal here, is to imitate the small fry. Um, anyway, this was an experiment with, for me, just using a different kind of filming system. Um, and so I would appreciate it if anyone would weigh in and let me know if they think they like how this came out, not just the fly, but the way it was filmed. Um, I had been using an old digital camcorder, and I'm experimenting with better ways to make these videos. Anyway, thank you very much. And whoops. And I appreciate you watching. Please leave comments. Bye.